Hello, this is Eloisa with Math Leopard. Today I'm going to cover the art of geomancy, its symbol creation, and divination by way of the earth. This is a synthesis of various interpretations on the subject, primarily attributed to that of Agrippa. The geomantic symbols contain 4 rows of either dots or stars. Each row contains 1 or 2 dots, meaning there are 2 possibilities for the first row, either 1 or 2 dots for the second row, either 1 or 2 dots for the third row, and either 1 or 2 dots for the fourth row. This entails a total of 2 to the 4th, or 16 distinct geomantic symbols, and they are as follows. The first contains 1 dot in each row and is called buia, or way. The second symbol contains 2 dots in each row and is termed populus, or people. The third has 2 dots in the first and fourth rows, and 1 dot in each of the second and third rows. This symbol is termed conjunctio, or conjunction. The fourth symbol has 1 dot in the first and fourth rows, and 2 dots in each of the second and third rows, and is called carcer, or prison. The fifth symbol has 2 dots in the first row, and 1 dot in each of the remaining rows, and is termed caput draconis, or dragon's head. The sixth symbol has 1 dot in each of the first 3 rows and 2 dots in the fourth row, and is called cauda draconis, or dragon's tail. The seventh symbol has 2 dots in the second row and 1 dot in each of the other rows, and is termed puella, or girl. The eighth geomantic symbol has 2 dots in the third row and 1 dot in each of the other rows, and is termed puer, or boy. The ninth symbol has 2 dots in each of the first and second rows, and 1 dot in each of the third and fourth rows. This symbol is called fortuna major, or greater fortune. The 10th symbol has 1 dot in each of the first and second rows, and 2 dots in each of the third and fourth rows, and is termed fortuna minor, or lesser fortune. The 11th geomantic symbol has 1 dot in the second row, and 2 dots in each of the other rows, and is termed rubeus, or red. The 12th symbol has 1 dot in the third row and 2 dots in each of the other rows, and is called albus, or white. The 13th symbol has 2 dots in each of the odd-numbered rows and 1 dot in each of the even-numbered rows, and is termed acquisitio, or gain. The 14th symbol has 2 dots in the even-numbered rows and 1 dot in the odd-numbered rows, and is called ammisso, or loss. The 15th geomantic symbol has 2 dots in the first 3 rows and 1 dot in the fourth, and is termed tristitia, or sorrow. And finally, the 16th symbol has 1 dot in the first row and 2 dots in each of the remaining rows, and is called laetitia, or joy. As there are 16 symbols, Agrippa divided the 4 mundane elements between them. Hence, those geomantic symbols which correspond to the element of the earth are carcer, prison, caput draconis, dragon's head, albus, white, and tristitia, sorrow. The element of air was attributed to conjunctio, conjunction, puella, girl, fortuna minor, lesser fortune, and laetitia, joy. The element of fire was given to puer, boy, fortuna major, greater fortune, rubeus, red, and ammisso, loss. Finally, the element of water was attributed to the symbols for via, way, populus, people, cauda draconis, dragon's tail, and acquisitio, gain. Agrippa then assigns to each of these symbols representations of the planets in both of their attributed constellations, save for the greater luminaries, which each reside in only one. Progressing in the order of the heavenly bodies from antiquity, namely Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon, we have that carcer, prison, represents Saturn in Capricorn, the greater detriment, while tristitia, sorrow, represents Saturn in Aquarius. Both of these symbols represent an aspect of Zazel. Acquisitio, gain, represents Jupiter in Pisces, a fortunate aspect, whereas laetitia, joy, represents Jupiter in Sagittarius. Both of these are governed by his Mael. Puer, boy, represents Mars in Aries and is benevolent, while the rubeus, red, represents Mars in Scorpio, which is malevolent. These are both aspects of Barzabal. Fortuna major, greater fortune, represents the diurnal sun in Leo, whereas fortuna minor, lesser fortune, represents a nocturnal sun in Leo. Both are aspects of Sorat. Next we proceed to puella, girl, representing Venus in Taurus, which is beneficent, and then ammisso, loss, represents Venus in Libra, or Venus retrograde. Each of these symbols is an aspect of Kedmel. Mercury is seen in conjunctio, conjunction, as Mercury in Virgo, a beneficent aspect, whereas albus, white, represents Mercury, and Gemini, also well aspected. Both of these are images of Teftartarat. Uia, way, represents the waxing moon in Cancer, and Populus, people, represents the waning moon in Cancer. The moon has spirit hosmodai. Finally, the two symbols which aren't heavenly bodies are Caput Draconis, dragon's head, representing the north node in Capricorn, and Cauda Draconis, dragon's tail, representing the south node in Scorpio. To the dragon's head is assigned both Hismael and Kedmel, whereas to the dragon's tail is assigned Zazel and Barzabal. But how does one go about creating these symbols in the first place? And how is this an art of divination? Well, as the name entails, this is indeed divination by way of the earth, in that we use 4 sets of 4 lines drawn in the sand or dirt, upon which we will place an array of dots, after meditating to clear our mind and focusing on the content of our query. To begin, we place as many dots as feels sufficient, without counting them whilst casting, in each of the first 4 rows. In the following image, we see that the first row contains 14 dots, which being even, will represent 2 dots on my geomantic symbol. The second row contains 10 dots, which also represents 2 dots on our symbol. The third row has 13 dots, hence being odd represents only 1 dot on the symbol, and finally the fourth row measures 16 dots, and hence simplifies to 2 on my symbol. This is the first of the 4 symbols, each of which is called a mother. Of course, the symbol with 1 dot in the third row and 2 dots in each of the other rows is known as albus, white, and is an earth element. The second casting has 9 dots in the first row, hence 1 on our symbol, 14 dots in the second row, hence 2 on our symbol, 16 dots in the third row, hence 2 on our symbol, and 10 dots in the fourth row, hence 2 yet again on our symbol. This second mother is Laetitia, joy, and is an air element. The third casting has 11 dots in the first row, yielding 1 on our symbol, 14 dots in the second row, giving us 2 on our symbol, 9 dots in the third row, yielding 1 on our symbol, and finally 12 dots in the fourth row, resulting in 2 on our symbol. This is a third mother, or amiso, loss, a symbol of fire. Finally, the fourth mother is created with 11 dots in the first row, hence 1 on the symbol, 13 dots in the second row, hence another 1 on our symbol, 9 dots in the third row, yielding 1 on our symbol, and finally 12 dots on the fourth row, giving us 2 on our symbol. Hence the fourth mother is Cauda Draconis, dragon's tail, a symbol of water. From these 4 symbols, all others in our divination are generated. From the mothers derive 4 daughters as follows. The first daughter is created by taking the first row entries in order from each of the first, second, third, and fourth mothers. This 5th symbol is Caput Draconis, dragon's head. The second daughter is created by taking the second row entries in order from each of the first, second, third, and fourth mothers, yielding Tristitia, sorrow, as the 6th symbol. The third daughter is created by taking the third row entries in order from each of the first, second, third, and fourth mothers, hence our 7th symbol is Puella, girl. And finally, the fourth daughter is created by taking the fourth row entries in order from each of the first, second, third, and fourth mothers, giving us Populus, people, as our 8th symbol. We now proceed to an astrological chart in order to divine the message of our symbols. The chart is divided into 12 houses, and Agrippa assigns meaning to each as follows. The first house on the ascendant corresponds to vita, or life. The second house, beneath the horizon from the ascendant, corresponds to lucrum, or riches. The third house represents fratres, or siblings. The fourth house, genitor, or ancestors. The fifth house represents nati, or descendants. And the sixth house, valetudo, or health. The 7th house represents uxor, or wife, and the 8th house, mors, or death. The 9th house corresponds to itineris, or journeys, and the 10th to regnum, or kingdom. The 11th house represents benefacta, or good deeds, and finally the 12th house represents carcer, or prison. The means by which we populate the chart is to assign the first mother, albus, white, to the ascendant, indicative of the life of the query. Each of the subsequent mothers are aspected with respect to her by 90 degrees. Hence, the second mother, Laetitia, joy, is in the 10th house, representing the kingdom. The third mother, Amiso, loss, is in the 7th house, representing wife or partner in the query. And the fourth mother, Cauda Draconis, dragon's tail, is in the 4th house, representing the ancestry or that which generated the query. The daughters are placed in order, one house behind those for the mothers. Hence our 5th symbol, Caput Draconis, dragon's head, is placed in the 2nd house, representing the riches or benefits of the query. The 6th symbol, Tristitia, sorrow, is placed in the 11th house, representing good deeds. The 7th symbol, Puella, girl, is placed in the 8th house, representing death, or what might prove fatal to the situation. And finally, the 8th symbol, Populus, people, is placed in the 5th house, representing the result of the situation. However, we're 4 houses shy of a full deck, as it were. In order to rectify this, we create the remaining 4 symbols via triangulation of the first mother with the final daughter, albus to populus, seen here in yellow, to create albus in the 9th house, representing journeys. This was created by adding the number of dots in each symbol to one another by row. The first, second, and 4th rows sum to 4, hence 2 dots in each, and the 3rd rows sum to 3, hence 1 dot. It's interesting to note that when we add any symbol to populus in this same manner, it acts as the multiplicative identity, hence the other symbol will always result. Moving to the second mother and first daughter, Laetitia and Caput Draconis respectively, in purple, we see that their sum, Via, resides in the 6th house corresponding to health. The third mother and second daughter, Amiso and Tristitia, in pink, sum to Puella in the 3rd house, corresponding to siblings. Finally, the 4th mother and 3rd daughter, Cauda Draconis and Puella, seen here in green, sum to Acquisitio in the 12th house, or prison. Recall that each of these symbols corresponded to one of the heavenly bodies within the zodiac. Albus was Mercury in Gemini, Caput Draconis was the north node in Capricorn, Puella was Venus in Taurus, and Cauda Draconis was the south node in Scorpio. It's important to note that this chart would make no sense if it were a genuine astrological chart, as north and south node would be diametrically opposed. However, this is a geomantic chart, and hence each placement should be interpreted in situ. Next, Populus was the waning moon in Cancer, and Via was the waxing moon in Cancer. Amiso represented Venus in Libra, and Puella Venus in Taurus as before. Once again, Albus is Mercury in Gemini, followed by Laetitia, or Jupiter, in Sagittarius. Next is Tristitia, with Saturn in Aquarius, and finally Acquisitio, as Jupiter in Pisces. Finally, it's important to place the genuine zodiac within the chart, beginning with the sign of the first mother on the ascendant, and proceeding by increasing number of the houses. Hence, Albus represents Gemini in the 1st house, so it follows that the signs are Cancer in the 2nd, Leo in the 3rd, Virgo in the 4th, Libra in the 5th, Scorpio in the 6th, Sagittarius in the 7th, Capricorn in the 8th, Aquarius in the 9th, Pisces in the 10th, Aries in the 11th, and Taurus in the 12th. This will add a layer of nuance, either increasing or decreasing the impact of each of our symbols within the various houses. Finally, we calculate the house which will most influence the whole chart, known as our index. First, we take the sum of all of the dots in our divination. The first mother had rows of 14, 10, 13, and 16 dots, summing to 53. The second divination had rows of 9, 14, 16, and 10, summing to 49. The third divination had rows of 11, 14, 9, and 12 dots, summing to 46. And finally, the last divination had rows of 11, 13, 9, and 12 dots, summing to 45. This implies that the total number of dots in this divination was 193. As we have only 12 houses, we take the remainder of 193 upon division by 12, and arrive at a value of 1. Hence the, quote, index for this chart is in the 1st house, Albus. I thank you for waiting so long between my videos. There is a large degree of both research and calculation involved, not to mention errors and contradictions within the texts themselves. That said, I hope you enjoyed this lecture as much as I did. Thanks for playing, and I'll see you next time.